So we've been talking about what is science and what is life. Now we're going to do a quick survey of the eukaryote domain in our tour of life. While most life on Earth is bacterial, we're going to focus on the eukaryotic kingdom of animals. Most people are more interested in animals, even though animals make up only 5% of all species on the planet. This is less than 0.5% of Earth's entire biomass. Biomass being the mass of everything living on the planet. When it comes to life, we are outnumbered and outmassed. There are over 1.5 million described species of animals. We're going to divide these up into groups known as phyla. When we look at these phyla, over 1.2 million of the phyla are the arthropods, mostly the insects. These are animals that have an external skeleton and multiple legs with distinct joints. The image here is what's called a speciescape. So this image shows you what percentage of species on the planet are in each of these categories. You can see this fly here representing the insects is huge compared to any of the other life forms on this page. This is the biggest group, and we're really not going to talk much about it. We're going to focus on our group, a group known as the chordates. We are known for having a nerve cord that runs down the back near a stiff rod of cartilage. In us, this cartilage becomes the intervertebral discs. There are only about 70,000 named species of chordates. We're not even going to bother with the chordates that aren't the vertebrates, because that's what we really are interested in. Vertebrates have an internal skeleton of bone or cartilage. They make up most of the chordates. There are only a few other things that are distantly related that get into this phylum. So, what are the major groups of vertebrates? We're going to start with the jawless fishes. Things like the lamprey that's pictured here, the hagfish. These guys, they don't have a jaw. They can't chew on things. They do have teeth. Their primary defense, however, is slime. You can see what happened here. This car was carrying an awful lot of hagfish and got rear-ended. And the hagfish stressed out and produced slime. The slime probably prevents predators from chewing on them or swallowing. But as you can see, it also makes a mess on the highway. The other groups of fishes are the cartilaginous fishes and the bony fishes. Cartilaginous fishes are the sharks and the rays. Their skeleton is internal. It's made of cartilage. They have a thick, tough skin which is covered with structures called dermal dentricles. This is a special type of scale that is more similar to teeth than to the scales found on the bony fish, which is why if you're petting a shark, you always go from the head toward the tail. Okay, well, the only place you should ever pet sharks is at a touch tank, like at the aquarium. Don't pet wild sharks. Bad idea. The bony fish make up about half of all vertebrates, and it's a very, very diverse group. Trying to pick individuals to represent this group was tricky. So I've got two. Our top image here is the knife fish. Knife fish are a group of fish that have electric organs. They are capable of creating an electric field around their body. Now, most of them are living in murky water, and they use this electric field to detect their surroundings. But of course, we all know about the electric eel, which has taken this a step further and uses its electric organ to stun prey. I also had to talk about the clownfish. Nemo. Oh, man, that movie got the science so wrong. Clownfish, it turns out, can undergo sex changes. In a lot of animals, sex is determined not by chromosomes, but by other influences, which can be temperature, or in the case of the clownfish, social situations. Clownfish live in relatively large groups in the wild. The largest member of the group is the female. All of the others in the group are male. If something happens to that female, the largest male changes sex and becomes a female. There are other kinds of fish that can do sex changes too, including moray eels. Most of the time, unlike in clownfish, the largest individual is a male and the rest are females. But again, if something happens to that male, the biggest female changes sex. All vertebrates that are not fish are tetrapods. Tetra means that we have 4, pod means leg or foot, so we have 4 appendages. We have 4 limbs. We're counting wings and arms in this group. Each limb has one long bone near the core of the body, followed by 2 long bones, a bunch of little bones that make up the wrists and the feet, and then digits, smaller long bones. We see this in all tetrapods. We see this in our arms and our legs. We see it in bird wings. We see it in the fins of whales. Sometimes they're modified, especially bird wings. They're highly modified, but they have the same bones. Some species, such as whales and snakes, have lost their limbs over time. Most whales have modified legs that are internal and important during mating. And some snakes have the same kind of thing, remnants of hind limbs that are important in mating. Most snakes have lost them completely, but their ancestors had them, and so we still consider them tetrapods. When we go through our tetrapods, we're going to start talking about amphibians. Amphibians, the frogs, the toads, and the salamanders. They all require damp habitat. Toads, which are a subcategory of frogs, can live in drier habitats. They don't need their skin to be moist at all times, but they need it for reproduction. Not all species undergo the metamorphosis that you probably learned about when you were in, elementary school. Egg, tadpole, frog. Our example amphibian here are the poison dart frogs. This group of frogs, well, they're poisonous. The poison is in their skin. They usually have very bright colors, often with high contrast, like the yellow and black guy down in the lower left. This is called aposematic coloration, and it serves as a signal that you shouldn't eat them. These guys are found in Central and South America. They do lay eggs in moist places, but not in the water, usually. Once the eggs hatch, the adults get the tadpoles onto their back and carry them piggyback to a suitable location. The skin toxicity in these guys comes from chemicals in their diet. So captive dart frogs are not toxic unless you feed them something with the correct poisons. So even though these are highly toxic animals, they're not likely to kill you. I mean, they're tiny for the first thing. They're, very, very small frogs, but also because in order to get the toxin, you have to eat them. Please don't eat the frogs. Our example squamate or lizard is going to be the Komodo dragon. The Komodo dragon is the largest living lizard. It can reach 10 feet and weigh 150 pounds. They are serious apex predators. Now, they're not highly active. They're usually ambush predators. They tend to kill quickly by biting their prey, and they'll often use their tail to knock the prey down. If they can't kill the prey quickly, they bite the prey and then follow it, and they'll follow it for days, waiting for it to either die from an infection or as a result of venom, because they are venomous. The venom that they produce appears to lower blood pressure, inhibit clotting, and induce hypothermia, all of which can contribute to the death of that animal. And they tend to eat big prey items. When we talk about the archosaurs, we're talking about modern day crocodiles and birds, as well as the dinosaurs. Crocodiles and the dinosaurs and birds group split off from a common ancestor before dinosaurs evolved. So if we look at characteristics that are common between crocodiles and birds, it's most likely that the dinosaurs had these same traits as well. Birds being the living descendants of the dinosaurs. So what do we see in crocodiles and birds? Well, we see a 4-chambered heart. Other types of animals have fewer chambers in the heart. A 4-chambered heart maximizes the oxygen content in the blood. And it's usually a sign of fast metabolism and being warm-blooded, things that require a lot of energy. Crocodiles, of course, don't exert themselves a lot. They're not warm-blooded. They do need a lot of oxygen for various aspects of their life because they're at least partially aquatic. They spend a part of their lives in the water. We also see parental care in crocodiles and birds and nesting. We know now that many of the dinosaurs had some feathers, probably for insulation. Birds are the group that took those feathers and started to use them to fly. So the archosaur that we're going to talk about is the Laysan albatross. This is one of my favorite animals. These very large birds range across the North Pacific and breed mostly in remote islands near Hawaii. They can fly more than 10,000 miles in a single journey. By single journey, that means they don't come back to land for the whole time. This can last for years. They only come to land when they are breeding. And in fact, they can even sleep while they're flying. Now, there is a problem for these albatross. The males tend to die as bycatch in the fishing industry. Longline fishing, which is literally miles of fishing line, they'll come down and steal the bait off of it, get hooked, and drowned. The females don't tend to do this as much. So it ends up in some locations that there are a lot more females than males. There's a breeding site on the island of Oahu in Hawaii where about 1/3 of the nests only have females. Now, it takes 2 adults to raise 1 chick. So these albatross will pair up in female-female pairs. Sometimes the female lays a fertilized egg. She goes out, sneaks around with one of the neighbors, gets fertilized, lays an egg, and both of the females will work to raise the chick. It doesn't always work out. They don't always end up with a fertilized egg. So conservationists on Oahu will go to unsafe areas where there are male-female pairs nesting and remove those fertilized eggs and put it in nests of female-female pairs where the egg is not fertilized. And those female-female pairs will then raise that chick. The oldest known albatross is a female bird named Wisdom. She's the oldest known wild bird. She is at least 70 years old. She was originally banded in 1956 as a breeding adult. Albatross don't breed until they are 5 years old. So that's how we get an estimate of 70 years. Wisdom is still breeding. Her latest chick hatched in February of this year. Can you imagine raising kids starting at age 70? Whew! The last group of vertebrates are the mammals. Mammals are defined by being warm-blooded, having fur or hair. Hair is just a form of fur. And producing milk from glands to feed their young. Milk used to be considered strictly a mammalian thing, but it turns out that a lot of other types of animals secrete food to feed their young. Pigeons, flamingos, penguins, they all make a type of food called crop milk. Some fish secrete food from their skin. The little baby fish will just eat it off of their skin. And there are even some insects that produce a food for their offspring. There are an estimated 6,400 species of mammals. Compare this to around 10,000 birds, 32,000 fish, and 1.2 million arthropods. We are so outnumbered. Most mammals alive right now are either humans or they are our domestic animals, like cow, pigs, sheep. There is very, very little wild space left for wild mammals. So in order to survive, wild mammals are getting better and better at living in or near our cities. In the city of Mumbai in India, there are leopards that patrol the city at night. Mumbai is a city that has twice the population of New York City. There are over 20 million residents. And leopards can be regularly spotted, not usually by people, but like this on a camera trap. They come into the city and they feed on stray dogs. Stray dogs will make up almost half of their diet. And it turns out that the loss of human life from leopards is not nearly as much as the loss of humans to rabies contracted from feral dogs or stray dogs. In India, around 20,000 people die of rabies every year, mostly from dogs, and there are about 15 people who die from leopards. So having leopards in town is actually beneficial to human survival in Mumbai. In the US, one of our biggest cities, Los Angeles, California, also has large cats, mountain lions. There are Around 100 mountain lions living in the mountains around and inside of Los Angeles, with at least 24 within the city limits. Even so, there's only been one confirmed attack on a person within the Los Angeles city limits, and that was a non-fatal attack. The person survived. Conservationists are currently raising money to build the world's largest wildlife overpass to help the mountain lions of LA. This overpass will go over one of the busiest freeways in the country and allow mountain lions living on either side of it to move back and forth. That was our quick tour of life. I'm sorry this video was longer than the 15 minutes that I promised, but there's just so much cool stuff to talk about. I just had to keep going. I hope you enjoyed it.